I mean, he's been so horrible. He's just a spoiled brat. He chokes an umpire. He swears all over the place on national television. He walks, practically has to get pushed out of the World Series, and he's going to get not only that money, but $600,000 to pay his fines. The umpires are coming out against him. They said he can do anything he wants, because if he gets in trouble, he's got another thing to that contract to have his fines paid.
Peck's bad boy.
He's stupid. Somebody's stupid.
Well, we're stupid. I mean, I think the whole nation's stupid right now. Not that we vote on what to pay Roger Clemens, I realize that. But people, and I'm not even sure that the tickets sold are going to this. I mean, now that teams get so much from television for carrying games, I mean, they get a lot more money that way than they do by ticket receipts.
Well, I remember World War II, so I go way back. But, I mean, it wasn't like Mike Rako's column the other day. It wasn't like this then. We couldn't drive. We couldn't buy refrigerators. We couldn't buy cars. We couldn't get meat. We had rations. Everybody is going on, living like this. There's nothing going on at all. We aren't, I don't understand it. I mean, this is not war. I mean, it's war for the ones that are over there, but it's like it was with Vietnam, if you saw any MASH episodes. I mean, everything was going on here fine.
Yeah.
And I think it's a terrible.
I think MASH was in Korea, supposedly the Korean War.
Korea, I'm sorry, yeah. It was.
But we're going to have to talk about this afternoon.
Okay, he shouldn't make Hall of Fame if Pete Rose can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
To share this hour, to share this task, to share the whole with all who ask, to share tomorrow's joy at last, to share the joy, to share the joy, share the joy, share the joy.
Tomorrow's joy begins today, when neighbors help neighbors overcome the bonds of hunger, poverty, and injustice. Together, we can make a world of difference. Share the struggle and share the joy in one great hour of sharing at your local church.
Share the joy, oh, share the joy, share the joy, share the joy.
A message from Church World Service.
Well, I'm leaving you for a while. Be back around 12:30. I'm Barbara Heisler. This is Springfield's News Talk Station, 9:30 a.m., WREB. Going to be visiting, as planned now, with Bob Markle of Springfield, City Councilor Bob Markle, who would like to be Mayor Bob Markle, and we are due to receive a call from him a little bit later this afternoon, after 12:30. And then I want to talk about Roger Clemens. I'd like your opinion.
Real Talk Radio, 930 WREB Holyoke.
And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Midday Report for this Friday, February 15th, 1991. I'm Debbie Bruno. I'll be here for the next 30 minutes to give you a full half hour of local, national, and international news. We also have lottery numbers drawn for you last night. Holden Harlow will be along with the Midday Financial Report. Also, Newswatch 40 meteorologist Roger LaPlante has the exclusive WREB weather forecast. Your family's health is on your way. We have sports, and my news focus guest this afternoon is Judith Stevens. She is the founder and inventor of Guarantee Hair Removal. It is a permanent hair removal type process, such like electrolysis, and we'll be talking to her about her invention. It's all ahead on the Midday Reports. But first, as always, we start off with news. And topping the news this afternoon, U.S. military officials in Saudi Arabia say they'll keep pounding Iraqi forces until President Bush tells them to stop. Questions about ending the fighting dominated today's U.S. military briefing in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Marine Brigadier General Richard Neal says the president has made it clear that the war goes on until Iraq shows it's actually pulling out of Kuwait. Neal says Allied planes will continue attacking Iraqi forces even if they're moving north. He says pilots have no way to tell if such movement is a withdrawal or part of a battle plan. Neal says Iraqi troops can lessen the killing by surrounding in droves, but so far the Marine General says there's no sign of such a move. As for the air war, Neal says an Air Force F-15E has shot down a hovering Iraqi helicopter with a laser-guided bomb, and he says a Navy A-6E crashed on the aircraft carrier America when its brakes failed. The crew members ejected safely. The general also says 8 more Iraqis surrendered overnight. On to the Saudi briefing. Saudi military officials say the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will abide by all United Nations Security Council resolutions. Army Colonel Ahmad al-Robayan says that's the only formal reaction his government has to Iraq's announced proposal for withdrawing from Kuwait. He refuses to take questions on the issue at all. Asked what Saudi feels would be if Saddam Hussein remained in power after the war, Robayan says Saudi Arabia remains part of the coalition and will fulfill its mission. He says any political decision will have to be made by political leaders. On the battlefront, the Saudi official says more than 30 Iraqi prisoners have surrendered since the last report. He also says 4 mines were discovered today, 2 by Saudi units and 2 by U.S. forces. U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia say they hear Iraq talking peace, but they're not ready to celebrate just yet. Most soldiers who spoke today at the U.S. base in Dhahran say they're cautiously optimistic. Technical Sergeant Loretta Bryant of Virginia says the troops are a skeptical bunch, and Staff Sergeant Joe Martin of Virginia also says he's ecstatic but skeptical. Many soldiers say they just don't trust Saddam Hussein, especially after hearing that his offer to withdraw from Kuwait is linked to other issues. Corporal Jared Mullins of Texas is with the 1st Cavalry Division stationed in northern Saudi Arabia, where he could face ground combat. As for Saddam Hussein, Mullins says flatly, "I don't trust him. We're going in." But Pasadena, Texas Sergeant Danny Height says he's more hopeful now. He says he agrees with the old saying, no one wants peace more than a soldier. Well, the White House says there's less than meets the eye to Iraq statement on withdrawing from Kuwait. President Bush calls the word from Baghdad a cruel hoax that contains little of value. Speaking at a gathering of scientists in Washington, the president said the statement contains old conditions and several new ones. And Bush says Baghdad has to get its hands off Kuwait, no ifs, ands, or buts. The conditions Bush mentioned include Baghdad's call for Allied forces to leave the region. Iraq also says Israel should leave the occupied territories. President Bush adds that he feels sorry for American families who heard Iraq's announcement and thought a breakthrough was coming. He also extended a wink and a nod to elements in Iraq who opposed Saddam Hussein. Bush suggested that the Iraqi military and citizenry take matters into their own hands and force Saddam Hussein to step down. Well, the Kremlin sounds less suspicious than the White House. A statement from Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev's press office says the positive report from Iraq was received with satisfaction and hope in Moscow. Iraqi Foreign Minister Tariq Aziz plans to go to Moscow Sunday. The Soviets say they're looking forward to meeting with impatience. The Vatican also seems hopeful. In the words of Pope's spokesman, this new fact should open the door to a solution to this crisis. But Vatican Radio says the conditions attached by Iraq seem to contradict the United Nations resolution calling for unconditional withdrawal. Pope John Paul II has made several fervent appeals against the war. Wall Street has greeted the news from the Middle East with an upturn. Just after the open, the Dow Jones Industrial Average crept up by more than 5 points. European stock and currency markets also rallied, but then fell back a bit more once traders started to worry about possible terms of the withdrawal. One dealer describes his trading room as frenzied. Meanwhile, oil prices overseas fell more than $2 a barrel at first, then recovered some. Numbers from Washington will also provide grist for Wall Street's mill today. The Commerce Department says the trade deficit fell in December to $6.3 billion, and the Labor Department says wholesale prices dropped 0.1% in January. Also, the Federal Reserve says industrial production dropped 0.4% in January, the fourth straight monthly decline. Well, relatives of Massachusetts military in the Gulf are skeptical about today's reports that Iraq might pull out of Kuwait, but they are hopeful it is a first step toward peace. A spokeswoman for a family support group in Weymouth says people have a wait-and-see attitude. She says it won't be over until all the family members are back from the Gulf. Others say there does seem to be a lot of conditions attached to the withdrawal. Meanwhile, President Bush's scheduled visit to the Bay State today is still on. He's slated to stop at a Patriot missile plant in Andover at the Raytheon Corporation. Well, the Army has agreed to consider conscientious